So you don't think you'll be able to hear me?
No, you are in the front. You and I are like in the back.
No, I mean to hear me on the phone. Through the computer?
Hungry?
Okay, well, I'm hanging up.
Mark, can you hear me? Hmm.
Hello and welcome to the all-new call-in show, Belief Battles, a weekly show ready to take your calls about religion, atheism, and secularism, featuring co-hosts, atheist and international VTuber Teo Elateo, and Mark Peralta, an ex-evangelical pastor, now atheist. So without further ado, Belief Battles.
Call 1-866-696-6698.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Belief Battles. I'm Mark Peralta, and with me is the lovely Apostate Ann.
Hey everyone.
And it is July the 18th, 2023. I've kind of lost count of our actual episode count, but we're so happy to be here. As you can tell, we're excited, and we've got a lineup of some wonderful TikToks that we are going to be commenting and peppering on today. That it's just stuff that is so relevant nowadays, and hopefully we'll get some callers. So, but for what? Why are we here? Tell us. I'm putting you on the hot seat. Say whatever you want to say. It was just.
No, I was gonna say, you were mentioning the TikToks that we're gonna be showing while we're waiting for people to call, and so I'll guess I'll say that. So if you have some questions for atheists, this is a great platform to be able to ask or to share your perspective onto why you believe and have a good discussion back and forth and hear a different perspective, because I think it's always good to explore all perspectives, right? But I was thinking back to when we were believers, and I feel like I used to hear all these stories of evidence to prove biblical events. And so I know today some of the TikToks we're going to be covering include some of that. So I'm excited because I feel like you kind of have to chip away at multiple evidence, because when you believe, you're always kind of hearing these stories like hearsay, and we're going to dig a little deeper on those.
For sure, yeah. But before we start there, I do want to lead us with what are the three types of calls that we're looking for.
Okay.
So these are the prompts that I kind of alluded to during the week on Facebook, if you're paying attention. The first one is theist, and this is all for you. Do you have evidence or arguments that can convince an atheist like us to believe in God? And so we want you to call in and make your case. That's the first one. We're looking for a second caller that will reply to this. Are you a believer who has had a personal experience or revelation that solidified your faith? And we want you to share your story and try to convince us on the air. So that will be second prompt. Which kind of reminds me, just so you know, this is just as a way of disclaimer. If you do call the show, this is a live show, and so what you say on the air, what we say on the air, it's going to go out there, and I have no control over it. So that just goes out. And then finally,
do we need a bleep button?
Yeah.
No, hopefully not. Hopefully it's civil discussion.
Yeah. I personally don't mind a little cuss word here and there, but if you're cussing at us, that's a different story. We will never tolerate anything like that with either one of us or Teo Elateo or anyone else that is on the show and set. And then number three, we're looking for, here it is. What is the most compelling proof or logical reasoning that you've encountered for the existence of God? We want to hear your best argument. So, with that said, folks, we are Belief Battles, and we're not a neutral platform because we are atheists, but we do hope to provide a safe space where you can inquire some of these very difficult and challenging questions for those who are having faith in a God. And we are ex-evangelicals. We've shared our story, and if you don't know who we are, well, We were part of a church for over about 20 years altogether. I'd say we served in the church at least. And I'm an ex-pastor, went to seminary school, I was trained on the biblical languages, and so feel comfortable that you're calling a place that's not like your well, it's not necessarily just someone that's against God or incredulous or simply a skeptic or an agnostic. We are people that have actually tried, well, not all of you, but maybe most of you, your faith already. So
Yeah, and I think having struggled with the same questions and even having the same reasons why we believed in the first place, and having to think about it and really figure out what are some of the issues with those beliefs. And I think sometimes if you hear another perspective, it opens your mind to really think critically. And so this will be fun. And for both sides, I think we're open-minded people because we have had multiple beliefs, and we have had instances where we were wrong in what we believed. And so that's what this is all about, is exploring different perspectives.
yeah, absolutely. And so, folks, you've heard why what we're looking for. And so how can you reach us? Well, first thing you can do, the easiest thing to do would be dial 1-866-696-6698. And that'll be a toll-free number if you're in the United States. However, we did a little bit of a test run earlier, and it seemed to work, and it didn't seem to work. So we may not be able to talk through the phone, but if that doesn't work, we're going to go ahead and post a link on the chat and pin it to the top so that you can log in through StreamYard, either using your smartphone or computer. Just make sure you have a microphone available. You don't necessarily have to turn on the camera, although if you do want to show your face or where you are, I mean, we'll be more than happy to see if we can show it on the air. So
Yeah,
can't
you
make
can
any
be
promises.
as interactive or as anonymous as you want to be.
Yeah, just no nudity or anything. Shut down.
Maybe not as you might want to be, but
Yeah.
so yeah, you're gonna put the
Mm-hmm.
link in the chat there,
Yeah.
or you can call in at 866-696-6698.
Let's see. It might take me a moment to put that link in the chat. So something that you can share with us about your week. Tell us, did you come across anything interesting on social media?
Well, I think I guess one thing I'll share is that both Mark and I were interviewed by a YouTuber, and his name's James Pesch, Pesch, and for me it was the first time to be interviewed for my story, like what happened, why did I start to question, and what was the process of coming to disbelief. And same with Mark, and Mark shared his story. So if you're interested in kind of knowing a little bit more behind the scenes and what led to this story, you can check it out on the little bit more behind Apostate of Mind podcast, our YouTube channel, as well as James Pesch YouTube channel as well. And he's got an interesting story in that he comes from he was an evangelical pastor. I think his father was also a pastor. And he was an evangelical faith healer. And now part of his deconstruction process was realizing that the healing was actually, adrenaline, the placebo effect, which is, powerful. It's a real thing, that your mind really is powerful and can help you feel better. And so, but now he's using that skill and knowledge to be a hypnotist, and using the same skills and science or knowledge of social cues and body language and power of suggestion, but in atheist hypnotist. So I thought that was really interesting.
And limited to actually things that are backed up by science
Right.
as well. So yeah, man, he was a great guy, and we had a grand time. So that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first time sharing this story, so it was kind of therapeutic to reflect on the journey.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna add the video to it to our Apostate of Mind podcast channel. It's coming. So.
And do you have the link in the chat already
Yes,
posted?
folks. So for those of you that are prefer to log in through your computer, you can. I've already pinned the link on the chat. You just click on through it. And if you've got a smartphone or your computer, just make sure you've got your microphone ready. And we should be able to chat. In the meantime, we do have some TikToks lined up. The first one that I'd like to start us off with is one from our beloved Jalen Albania, which we've already done a couple.
Yeah, there's a whole story there. Do you want to kind of give us the background? Tell us about what's going on with Jalen.
Okay, so if you follow me or we're friends on Facebook, I've posted a couple of interactions that we've had through TikTok Messenger, and it's just been really interesting. One thing I will say though is the Jalen Albania that has reached out to me, it seems like it's either what would you call that, a copycat, someone pretending to be her.
Yeah, maybe a secondary, like,
Or it could be a
Not an
second
authentic
account. I don't know
account.
because it's her. She's got one account that's got like well over 1.5 million,
wow.
and then this one has only got 1,000. So I don't know, folks, if that's a real her, but she sent me a message, and it's been crazy.
So what did she say? And
So she is making it out to be where the Lord is giving her some sort of, she didn't say a vision, but like I guess some sort of revelation that I have a
gosh.
dark cloud over me, and that she sees
just out
like
of
a lot
nowhere, she just
success,
happened
but
to see this. God telling her this.
I'm not gonna succeed because something's holding me back.
But
And
that was
so-
after she complimented you and said many nice things about you.
Did she?
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Then she kind of offered me something. Let me see. I have very bad memory, so I'm gonna rely on my screenshot. I'm better off doing that anyway.
And just to give a little background, so with Jalen, she makes TikToks where she's misinterpreting Hebrew, and Mark studied in seminary and reads biblical Hebrew, and so he breaks down as to why what she's saying is misleading and wrong. And so he made a TikTok in response and then sent it to her, to the real Jalen, and then got this response from another Jalen account that we think is sus.
And I also wrote her an email, and the email was sent to her collab. She has an email that's just dedicated for collabs on TikTok.
Okay.
So maybe that's how she found about me, but she has not replied to email though. So the last thing she said, and this is the one that just like what? She goes, the enemies are working on holding your favor from God, and they want to make sure that you amount to nothing.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
They want that.
that's beyond just like you're not gonna be prosperous. This is like you're gonna be worth nothing.
Dang.
Comma. The Lord said you should sow a seed of faith to Children of Tomorrow Orphanage.
What is that? Is that a real?
Apparently, before the end of 3
Organization?
days. And look, it says, before the end of 3 days.
Oh my god.
What does that sound like?
A threat?
3
Something's
days,
gonna
but-
happen if you don't do this in 3 days.
Like, Jesus resurrected on
Oh,
the
yeah.
third day. All that, man.
Yep.
Before 3 days to attract divine and spiritual breakthrough in your life and that of your family and loved ones, because there is power in sowing. And then she cites the Bible with like a Deuteronomy and a proverb, which I haven't checked yet, but
Which is meaningless to an atheist who doesn't believe that the Bible is true, to quote the Bible.
yeah.
But I just feel like this is a manipulation based on fear. And I remember when I believed, like, this was sort of the last step of saying, okay, if I stop believing, are all these bad things going to happen because I lose God's favor and lose God's protection and will for me to do well? And that's what it's threatening. You shouldn't need to do that. You should have reason to believe. You shouldn't rely on threats.
Yeah, and because it's gonna be appealing to like people's fears
And that's another thing I was going to say, is that one thing too that is a truth that I think I needed to accept from going from a believer to a non-believer is the truth that bad things happen to everybody. Bad things can happen to everybody. Bad and good things can happen to everybody. And some people have more bad things happen. Some people have more good things happen. It happens for believers, non-believers alike. There's no correlation with your belief in God and whether those good or bad things happen to you.
yeah. And speaking of bad things happening, should I queue up our first TikTok?
Yeah.
All right. Let me just double check. I don't see that there are any callers yet.
Okay.
And indeed, no callers. So, folks, we're looking for you to argue the existence of God, among other things. So, go ahead and give us a call. We are waiting, and we're excited to talk to you. So, let's go ahead and begin with our first TikTok of today.
And this was the lady you've been talking about, right, Jalen?
Yes, this is our Jalen Albania. Let's see.
Who's also a Disney star.
Yeah, apparently
Disney
she does like theater and stuff. So, all right. This one's titled "Watch Till the End." My baby hairs are paid actors. My baby hairs.
I
Okay.
think she's trying to say I have goosebumps, maybe?
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, her.
So this morning when I opened my Bible, I saw that the next passage for me to read was about Lot and his daughters. So quick story, in Genesis 19, Abraham's nephew named Lot decided to move to Sodom and Gomorrah with his family, and God eventually had to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because it's such a wicked city. But by God's grace and mercy, Lot and his two daughters escaped. Anyways,
Yeah. By God's mercy, the one family of like all these families that
What about
perished.
Job's family? Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention what happens right after as they're leaving the city to a person that turns around. Okay, let's see.
here's the gross part. Lot's older daughter tells her sister, hey, there are no men around to give us children, so... And then they look at their dad. So you know what happens. I'm not going to go into that. Anyways.
How convenient. You don't want to go into that yet. Okay.
Lot's younger daughter has a son, and names it Ben-Ami. And Ben-Ami becomes the father of this group of people called the Ammonites. And then the older daughter also has a son, and names him Moab. And Moab becomes the father of this nation called the Moabites. Fast forward, the Ammonites and the Moabites became these groups of people that are against God's people, aka the Israelites. And as I'm reading this, I'm like, wait a minute. Guess who is a Moabite? Ruth. So now let's go over to Ruth's story. Ruth is a Moabite who marries an Israelite, but then her husband dies, and now she is left with her mother-in-law named Naomi.
Okay, so one little leap here that she's making here is she's connecting the whole polemic against the Ammonites. And what was that other group of people? The Moabites.
Moabites.
That is apparent in the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis, among many other things, polemicizes against other nations that have competing gods for very good reasons. And one of those nations that it polemicizes against is the Moab and Ammon, or the land of the kingdom of the Ammonites, which just happen to be neighbors of the land of, what do we call that then, Israel still, and that's it. The book of Ruth, though, even though Ruth is said by its author that she was from the land of Moab, I'm not quite sure if the author of Ruth is superimposing that polemic against these two nations and slapping it on top of Ruth. Because I think that the primary goal of the author with that story is simply to say with that is that she was a foreigner and that her family worshipped foreign gods. And so it's basically drawing a huge spectrum between, a foreigner and a person that's from Israel, from the land of Yahweh, which is in this case Naomi, and how Ruth plays such a significant role in the preservation of the lineage of the tribe of Judah, as it turns out by the end of the book of Ruth. It's a fascinating story, but I wouldn't say that it's okay to just go ahead and slap on things from other books of the Bible and say, all right, well, this is what the author is really trying to do there. No, context is going to have to do that. So that would be the first thing I have against what she's saying so far. However, not that controversial yet. Let's see what else she's got.
Hey, you can leave me, go marry someone who can actually help you. And Ruth says, no, I want to be where you go, your God will be my God. And God heard that. And then all throughout the book of Ruth, she meets this amazing, genuine man of God named Boaz. And everything is very cutesy and pure. I feel like I was watching a K-drama. Long story short, Boaz marries and redeems Ruth. A redeemer is someone who gets someone out of that poverty life, someone who cares for them and provides for them. So it's all super cutesy, right? But the story does.
Okay, but that's not all what a redeemer is. So I want to say something about that, but you seem to want to say something.
Well, that's what I was picking up on too. I understood redeeming like because he marries her and she's like this outcasted widow, right? And now because he can marry her, then now she's can be accepted in society again. Is that maybe I shouldn't be? You're the expert on that. Go ahead and share.
So, the book of Ruth is doing a lot of things. And one of those is that out of some crazy coincidence, or I don't know if you could say that's the will of God, all of the men in Naomi's family, including Ruth's husband, die. And so therefore, you've got all these women, Ruth included, and the other two that had married the other brothers. Because there were more than one. I think there were 3 brothers. And it's all about how this foreigner who came from a family that worshipped other gods, which if anything, it testifies to the fact that the Bible speaks sort of very polytheistic. Okay? Because it's admitting that there are people that believe in other gods. And just how she kind of makes that confession, I'll follow you wherever you go, your God will be my God. And it's sort of like that sacrifice that she makes in that she goes wherever, she needs to go. And because
Renouncing
Naomi,
her God.
Yeah, and even to the extent of renouncing her own God tradition. Because of the matriarch in that story is Naomi, the mom, and because of she's now a widow, well, she's now in that culture. she's now destitute, and it's a really bad thing. And it's like the community sees that like, yeah, dang, like, you lost your husband, but maybe is there a reason why God allowed this to happen? And so it's not a good thing to be a widow. And so that means, you can't really get a job, you're done. So what does Ruth do? Ruth helps the mother-in-law, and I'm telling the whole story here, but it all comes down to they move down to Jerusalem, and they find what's this gentleman who is in the Hebrew culture of the day, this character, not character, but he serves the role of what the Hebrews call a goel. And what a goel is, which is often translated as redeemer, it was sort of like, every family would have a person that would be a man that would be designated to, in the event that somebody had to step in. Like, say you have several brothers and it's a big family, and it comes down to where there are two brothers, and someone's gonna be a widow at some point, and someone's gonna have to look after mom or whatever. So this goel is a person that comes in and assumes a responsibility for a woman in need within a certain family connection. So not necessarily a direct relative, but it could be a distant cousin or someone of wealth. And so they find this man, and he takes them in.
It's like the Godfather.
And he saves them. But then meanwhile, Ruth falls in love, and they marry, and so the family is reinstated in society. They're no longer manless, right? Because the Bible teaches,
you need a man.
You gotta have you need a man, and so that's really what's going on there. And but what's really interesting though is that at the very end of that book comes a genealogy that leads all the way to King David, and I think this is where she's gonna go next. So I'll play.
Not end there. So Ruth and Boaz end up having a baby and names it Obed. Obed has a son named Jesse. Jesse has a son named David. And down David's lineage is Jesus. Like the actual Jesus, the Savior of the world, the Prince of Peace, our wonderful Counselor. All of this to say, even if you think you're too far gone, God's love for you is bigger than your mistake. He wants to be your Redeemer.
Okay. All right. So one thing is, we heard that there is an echo coming off from the TikTok, and I'm not sure why. But what I'm gonna do now is, when I play the TikTok, I'm gonna go ahead and mute our microphone so that hopefully it doesn't happen again. All right. And then regarding the TikTok here, she ends it with Jesus wants to be your Redeemer, and so that. This is exemplary, and this is not something that she's advancing on her own. This concept of Jesus being the Redeemer is something that's very much part of Christianity, right?
Yeah, essential.
Yeah. And so
you need to be redeemed, first of all.
Yeah, you need to, because it's not. This isn't that. But this is a different kind of redeeming, though. So this is where she's making. Yet again, another exegetical fallacy here in adopting the language of Redeemer, the Goel that I defined earlier in the book of Ruth, to the concept of redeeming from your sins that you learn from in the New Testament. And so those two elements are not the same, because really one has absolutely nothing to do with the other. The biblical one, I would say, the Hebrew Bible one, is a concept that involves actual things, transaction, money, right? You can't be a goel if you can't supply, if you can't support. There's an actual physical thing happening here. the concept of redemption in the New Testament or in Christianity, it has to do with being saved from hell, essentially. You know, that you have to, that your sins bear a penalty, and that penalty has to be paid, and then they're going to advance that Jesus dying on the cross has like this absolute power, and like never, you know, his funds never run out when it comes to his salvific.
And this is just the connection of
abilities.
an Old Testament story to New Testament Jesus that was going to happen way later. I mean, if the point of the story was to say, hey, your future Messiah will also be your Redeemer, like, why not say that? It's like, as a believer, you have to insert that in there. Oh, it's foreshadowing the future Savior to come that's going to redeem us, that they're adding that in there.
That's a great point, because as a matter of fact, in the book of Ruth, there's no mention about the Messiah. So again, these things, these ideas, these concepts, they should mix. And I know Christianity does that, but it's doing it. You know, they're acting out of order. So, and then finally, if you read the genealogy that's at the very end of the book of Ruth that she referenced just now, when mentioning how the son Obed eventually leads to, you know, the birth of, you know, the preservation of the tribe of Judah happens through that family, because apparently everyone that was of the tribe of Judah had died except this one family. You have to kind of believe that. So think about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of other beliefs that come with believing in biblical things.
Yeah, you have to maybe believe that as well. And the other thing too is that if you read the genealogy, it goes to David. It doesn't say anything about Jesus. And it doesn't say anything about a Messiah either at the end. It just leads all the way to David.
Nor would the bloodline be connected through David, since Joseph was not the legitimate father of Jesus, right?
That's right. And that was one of those misconceptions that we clarified on the other rebuttal video that I did for Jalen Albania as well. So absolutely, we reject the New Testament authors' claim that Jesus was of the tribe of Judah, which would qualify him as fulfilling messianic prophecy, on the basis that the Jewish tradition, when it comes to what lineage you are part of as a born Jew, born of a Jew family, is only through the dad. So if you're a Jew, and which means that your mom has to be Jew, your dad, whatever tribe his family, or in modern day, it's all about the last name. So for example, those that claim, because again, this is just Jewish claim, I'm not saying this is true, but those who claim of the lineage of the tribe of to Aaron, for example, the priestly line, are going to have the last name Cohen. So any Jew that is last name Cohen is of the lineage of Aaron, and so forth and so on. So the tradition has always been, it's all about the dad. So what's the big deal? The big deal is that the New Testament authors, the gospel writers, also claim that Jesus was not of the seed of Joseph. That there's the Holy Spirit. And so what would you say to the commenter there that David's life is an amazing foreshadowing of Christ? How would you respond to that? David's life is such an amazing foreshadowing. Yeah, because, you know, Christ also had 1,000 wives. It's fun to like pick like stuff that sounds like Jesus would be like of David. But
because Jesus was a king.
Yeah, so I think of David and the whole Bathsheba incident? You know, is that something that is foreshadowing Christ's ministry? The thing is that the New Testament authors want to tell you, they want to sell you the idea that the Psalms that are attributed to David, where he says things like, I think Psalm 22, you are my beloved son, and today I have begotten you. They want to rob that language from Psalm 22, which doesn't mean what you want it to mean if you're a Christian believer. And that's how they want to. That's why they want to link him with David.
So,
You know, among other reasons.
one of the reasons why he was saying that David is foreshadowing Christ is because David was a shepherd, and Jesus referred to us as
Sheep.
the good. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
was referred to as, he was referred to as the good shepherd.
Yeah. The good shepherd of what? He never shepherded any sheep. He was never a really shepherd. He was like somebody who maybe helped out.
Okay, so they're spiritualizing that. Like, oh, like David was a shepherd. Jesus shepherd what?
Shepherd of
Souls?
men, yeah.
Or what?
Yeah. And so, and I think that that whole concept of a leader, a son of God, to be this sort of linked to a whole shepherd concept is one of those tropes that you hear from other literary works. That there are more shepherds in antiquity than Jesus as well. So it's not even an original thing. Nor is there anything about that having to do with the messianic expectation from the Jews. The Jews really were expecting more of a military kingly leader who would ultimately liberate them from their oppressors and their political oppressors, namely in that moment would have been the Roman Empire. But we know that didn't happen. The complete opposite.
Yeah, Jesus was never a king or had that kind of power.
Yeah, and okay, so our friend here from your favorite blockhead, the podcast, says Bathsheba proved that David was human. He was not the savior in human form. Look, you can read it that way. You can say that. And to say that proves that his humanity, to me, is a little bit of double talk. What you should be saying is, Bathsheba proved that David was an asshole, was a terrible person. A terrible person! You remember what he did? What did he do to Bathsheba's husband?
Sent him to war.
Okay, if you don't know the story, Bathsheba was this beautiful woman. David catches her changing out, or I don't know, bathing outdoors, and he starts lusting over her. He actually has her come into his palace. Now this is King David in all his power, right? So think about this is maybe more of a rape. He brings her in. They have a relationship, an extramarital relationship, because they were both married. And in order to avoid facing Bathsheba's husband, who was like a major general, fighting his war, meanwhile David is at home jerking off to Bathsheba, right? In the middle of war. He has that dude killed. You're gonna say this is humanity? No, this is the worst of humanity, is what that is. So, I'm not defending Jesus here, but David is not all what you guys make him out to be. He was a horrible person, and so was his son, and everybody else, beyond that. Okay, should we resume to another TikTok?
Sure.
Okay. So let's see here. This might take me a little bit because I'll have to click through some things.
Did you know that
we'll have
scientists
to
have actually found...
Mute.
We'll have to mute. Yes, thank you for the reminder.
Okay.
Okay, apparently the link, I'm assuming our StreamYard link.
We'll post the link again so you can jump on.
Yeah.
And
bear
if
with
you
us.
want to call in too, the number is 1-866-696-6698.
Oh, that's something else.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
So this is one of those videos I was telling you about that, you know, as a believer, you kind of hear things like, oh, I heard, you know, there's proof of God in our DNA, or there's proof of God found in this new archaeology, like Noah's Ark was found, or, you know, things like that that you just hear. You don't necessarily go in to find out what the details were of that story. And so here's one of those things that I've been seeing shared a lot in different forms, and so I'd like to address it. So let's play it.
All right.
Did you know that scientists have actually found the name of God written in our DNA? As it turns out, in the nucleic acid in our DNA, scientists found a sequence that spells out the name of God. The sequence revealed the letters Yod, He, Vav, He, which actually spells Yahweh, the name of God. And you're not going to believe this, that sequence is found in every single person's DNA. It is the thumbprint of God proving that He is real. If you believe that God is real, subscribe for more. And if you want to know the truth about
Okay,
All right.
so to me, he's claiming that in our DNA sequencing that we know is built of, you know, ACGT combinations, that, and these are chemicals that, you know, are the building blocks of our DNA, that I guess he's trying to say in Hebrew that they found the letters YHWH in our DNA. Is that what I'm hearing he's claiming?
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. That there's scientific evidence that the 4 letters that make up God's name in Hebrew were found in our DNA sequence. That's what he said.
So we looked into like what's behind this. Like, where is he getting that there's YHWH in our DNA? So, well, first of all, what problems do you see with that?
Well, first of all, DNA is not a language that we can talk about it in terms of letters. The plain fact is DNA you've got essentially 4 chemicals that can be arranged, and they arrange in certain ways, and we have names for them, or scientists have given them names based on not something magical, but rather their molecular structure, like what they actually represent. So one of those is adenine, and that's usually represented by the letter A, but it does not mean that adenine as a chemical, as a molecule, is somehow symbolic or illustrative of the letter A in any way, shape, or form. And for that matter, any other letter in any language. Okay? It's simply by way of convention. Scientists will define things and label things so that we can talk about them. So what that means is no one can make anything out of the letters or the names of what these chemicals that us in the year, well, this would have been a couple of decades ago, called.
I wanted to make a demonstration on using that logic. So using that logic, and we know we call it, you know, adenosines ATCG or ACTGT. Let's say you're worshiping a cat. Well, your DNA could spell CAT, you know, if you're having that order of those chemicals CAT, And then you could say, see, it spells cat. That confirms our cat god. That's essentially what it's saying. Like, there's nothing there. There's no logic there. That makes no sense, nor does that point to or prove God.
For sure. And if you're gonna say that, even if there were, let's say that there were, like, are you just like picking out the sequence that happens to match? Because there's really nothing significant about DNA that would be like, okay, this is obviously something we don't know anything about. And by the way, where's the Nobel Prize for the person who found this? This is actually a lie, and I won't like play this anymore. This is ridiculous. I think he's just promoting his channel at this point.
Yeah. That's it. That was basically his only claim.
Yeah. So
I would like to post the comment by your favorite blackhead about
Okay, what do
the
we
law
got?
of biogenesis.
All right, let's
Mhm.
see. You want to read it or?
Go ahead.
So, your favorite blackhead says, the podcast, the law of biogenesis, this scientific law that all animals come from another according to its kind. How many times does it read in Genesis according to its kind? Hey, I have a question for you, Mr. Your favorite, or Mrs. Whichever, your favorite blackhead. Are you quoting like, what's his name?
Which guy?
They make fun of him all the time. Not the
Oh,
Banana Man, but the guy who's in trouble. He's actually in jail now. Or
The Ham?
no,
The other one?
not.
Hover? No, Hoven?
Yes.
Hoven. Ken
yes,
Hoven.
Ken Hoven. Yeah, that sounds so much like something Ken Hoven would say. According to its own kind. No. First of all, the word kind in science in this topic is not the same way. It's not used the same way. It's not the same thing as species. And I'm not quite sure what this law of biogenesis is. Where did you get this from? Can you provide us with the source?
But either way, I mean, yes, you come from your parents who are of a similar species, right? Or the same species, the same kind. But if you were to take that as evidence of, well, also in Genesis it says that God, on Noah's Ark, right, brought over the species according to its kind, right, the pair. But we already know that story has been disproven by science. One, by the amount of biodiversity that we have today cannot possibly
This is
be
literal
explained.
proof that Jesus is real.
And also, I know you have one anecdote about the kangaroos,
Yeah, I mean this could go on forever though.
but just share a little bit about why the whole Noah's Ark story explaining how animals got here, biogenesis, is proven wrong.
Yeah, it's actually impossible. Like, if we're going to narrow it down to what the Bible says, that Noah kept in the ark, which, by the way, is not an original story to Genesis. That's something we've talked about, is actually a myth that dates back to the Sumerians, other nations, but, for the most part, that culture already had a flood narrative, and it sounds just like Noah's Ark. And but let's say that was the actual thing. Let's say Genesis was right. It's not possible to go with the amount of species, that kind of variation that is listed in Genesis, to where we are today.
Not to mention all the logistics, like feeding them, making sure they don't eat each other. There's a lot of, what do you do with all the poop? Like, there's so many problems that if you are an animal owner, you know that there's just not possible, especially wild animals, gathering them like that. Like, it's more supernatural, miraculous beliefs that you have to believe, like, oh, God, spirit went into all these animals and they just lined up and they just didn't eat for a year and didn't attack each other, and all the insects, flew with the ark, and like, there's just so many issues with that story. And there's other evidence. Well, if that story was true as well, our old fossils would reflect current species, but when we find older fossils, they're all are of extinct species that we don't have today, and so just really the evidence points to evolution, and if you look into it more, it's really a fact. There's just overwhelming evidence to support evolution, and not Noah's Ark.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I've noted your source. Thank you for that. I'm going to be looking into it. There's an article about it. I never heard of Jeff Miller. What I did found was an article published in Apologetics Press, which I'm not trying to discard it just on the basis of that, but I would have liked to have seen something that's more of a
Credible scientific
this would be
publication.
More like, what would this be? Evolutionary biology? Yeah, evolutionary biologist publication of some sort, or an evolution publication. But I'll check it out anyway and see if there's anything else.
Yeah.
Let's see. So our next one is titled Literal Proof Jesus is Real. So get ready, folks. I mean, have you seen this TikTok? Because if he's right,
you're gonna show,
then everybody that's watching this is expected to be at church on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, if there's proof, we're open. If this is proof, like, let's see it.
Yeah, let's have a look.
This is literal
Wait, let me.
proof that Jesus is real. You're going to want to watch this. Jesus' real robe was found and is on display for anybody who wants to see it to go look at it. Not only that, but in the same...
Okay, so he just moved on, so I'm going to pause him.
First of all, I want to say that I studied abroad in Europe, and part of our studies and travels, we visited so many different cathedrals. There was so much history, amazing gold altars, history in that you could see the mosques that were converted to cathedrals and now had shrines. But so many of the cathedrals that you visit are like, in this cathedral, we have Jesus' crown. In this one, we have the nails. We have this. And when you go there, not one of them did I actually see any of the things. So then I was like, well, like, not even any pictures? Like, where is it? That you should have it on display and protected. And so I was only led, I could only conclude that, well, maybe it's locked up in the basement somewhere where the monks protected. I don't know, because it's not here. They're not having it on display, even though that was like the whole hype of visiting that specific cathedral. So anyway, there's got to be a lot more than just a claim like, hey, this is his crown. You've got to have some other way to be able to connect it to belonging to Jesus.
Okay, so he said robe. I've never heard of a robe. This is real news to me, because I heard of the Shroud of Turin, which is BS.
Okay, so
But
I think that's part of this whole argument. I've seen the Shroud of Turin. I've seen the Crown of Thorns, which looked more like rosemary to me. And I've seen the nails, which if you look at the claims, they're always like, oh, it may have been. They never actually claim that it is or that they think it is. They're just like, maybe. So there's no reason to take this as evidence, because not even the people that have this are claiming that.
yeah, and he doesn't seem to list anyone.
Right,
So
he moved on.
He just made what is that, a gratuitous claim? He just threw it out there and expected us to say, oh yeah, there's a robe somewhere.
Yeah, like, where's the story? Where was it found? Like, why are they attributing this robe to Jesus? Like, nothing. There was no explanation.
Yeah. And is that something he actually wore? Did he walk around wearing a robe? I don't think they even call that a robe. Like, whatever attire that people would wear.
How would
but
we just
I don't know.
now
I could be wrong.
finding
Maybe
this?
Jesus liked to, do the whole spa thing and had a robe with this name engraved on it, like JHS. All right, that's an insight. If you're Catholic, you know what I mean by JHS. All right, here we go.
Same location.
Oh wait, I gotta remember to mute. Here we go.
Literal Bible the literal Bible that they believe Jesus used is on display.
So he just said that they found what someone believes to be the literal Bible that Jesus used.
It had to be the Hebrew Bible because
Yeah, I bet.
the New Testament wasn't written yet.
Yeah, and I'm sad to announce that during the first century, and maybe for a few hundred years later too, the Bible was not really bound as a book. So whoever's making this claim is misinformed. What you did have in antiquity during Jesus' time would have been scrolls. People did not walk around with books under their armpit. It was a scroll and it was usually not like the whole Hebrew Bible. It would have been like scroll of Isaiah, scroll of Daniel, but that's what it was. So to make this sort of claim that they found Jesus' Bible, like you talking about the old, like the Hebrew Bible, like no, it's not gonna work. And it's just a lie.
And again, when you look into it, they're not claiming that. They're claiming, it's a Bible that was old, and it may have been like they're just throwing it out there, like may have been like the one that Jesus may have been reading during that time. It's not evidence.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So this dude is lying. All right, let's see what else he's got up his sleeve.
Showing the pictures of what Jesus used in his day. And finally,
Oh, the Bible was illustrated too.
Oh God.
Are you serious? Showing the pictures, like, dude, like, do you really believe that, Mr. Cade Cross? No, wait, that's not him. That's the music. I don't know who he is. Whoever you are. Wow. Shall we continue?
Nah, I think I'm ready to move on to the next one.
Let's look at another one. I think there's more stuff. Let's see.
All right. Yeah, this next one, this is the one that I was telling you that I hear a lot about. Oh, Jesus. Okay. This one my friend literally sent me.
This is crazy.
And she was like, if God is not real, like, how do you explain this? And I saw this video was shared a lot, and I mean, it was really convincing. Like, a lot of believers that I know are sharing this video, and it looks convincing. This is a little bit long if you want to kind of scroll to the end.
Okay, I can scroll it up a little.
So basically, this
What
lady
are we looking at? Yeah, tell us what we're looking at.
This lady has this arm deformity, and you'll see that as they're praying and pouring holy water on her, all of a sudden she's healed. And these are the kind of healings, like, why don't we see more of this? If this is the kind of thing that God is still doing today, like, we should have tons of videos like this. It should be undeniable, overwhelming evidence of this. But the reality is, we see people, yes, heal, but, with medical treatment, or maybe with their body's immune system, and, there's lots of other reasons that explain their healing.
Jesus is
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you...
Okay, I do want to say something here. Like, what are we looking at? First of all, we're looking at a person from one side of her body only. We're not really able to see what her other arm looks like. So we just have to kind of like take that as it comes. The other thing too, and I'll back it up a little bit so you see where it started, or when the miracle is purported to have started, what she looked like. And it doesn't, I'm not a physician, but I don't think it takes one to realize there's something wrong with her arm to begin with. And it's not that it's short necessarily. I mean, I'm not looking at a baby arm here, are you? Just by with the way that things fold
Right, it's like
a
the
little.
upper arm is deformed or crushed or smaller.
Something's wrong with that shoulder, and something's got to be wrong. She's got to be missing a bone of something, because this isn't natural. This is not a short arm. So whatever happens here cannot be a regrowing, a growing of an arm, because you're starting with like this wiggly, this little twisty tie position here. Okay. So
That's what.
the other thing what we're not looking at an X-ray. I would love to have seen an X-ray
Yeah, that's true.
and see, all right, where are the bones here? Because
like what's
skin
happening literally.
and folds can be very deceiving, and like who knows what kind of medical care this person's received, or what the history, her medical history is
Right.
also.
Yeah,
as
this
well.
may be something. I mean, I know that it's not, but like, for example, it could be something that runs in their family, and so there's a medical explanation. But
Yeah.
for
All right.
as far as the healing goes, let's see.
Okay. All right. So I'll fast forward a little bit here, and kind of bring us to when the action starts happening. Kind of like here. Okay. Let's go.
There is power in the name of Jesus. If this ain't enough proof for y'all, then you're just thinking it.
All right. So it's at the end of the miracle growth.
Yeah, and so my friend sent this to me, and as soon as I Googled like African woman arm healing, right away popped up that this was a fake, and that she admitted it, and she was sorry, but that this was like four pastors who were in on this, and they traveled and showed her healing. And what it was is, I guess she had broken her arm previously, and so didn't get it set right, and so then it just healed that way, and so she can do that with her arm. And so that was the explanation for this proof of God's healing.
Yeah. Wow. See, I didn't know that you had looked into that.
Yeah.
And just seeing how the people. I mean, it kind of reminds me of what's the name of that street magician? David Blaine.
Uh-huh.
Kind of reminds me of that. You know, I don't know if you know about David Blaine, but one of the things that he was accused of, I don't know if it's true or not, but it seemed like pretty legit, that he would hire stooges that would follow him on the streets, and you know, because at some point people they see what's going on, and not every perspective kind of gives you that advantage as a magician. So anyway, he would hire stooges that would, like, and you've seen the videos. This was what, early 2000s perhaps. People jumping up and down, screaming, and overacting with their reactions and everything, leads the crowd into like even more shock, and it's contagious.
And this is one of those moments that you gather as evidence for God, and you store them in your mind, and you keep on in your faith, without really questioning and digging deep and thinking critically. And part of my deconstruction process was reevaluating all those instances where I thought it was something, like speaking in tongues, or you see, someone having an experience and just having another explanation that is within the realm of our reality. For example, like we mentioned before, the placebo effect, or even just your own, speaking in tongues, shabalala, by your own efforts.
Yeah.
I think we attribute a lot of things to God in our mind.
Yeah, and it is not about it's not necessarily all about experience too, because I remember in seminary I was having to take this. It was an advanced course in Trinitarianism, and so he kind of walked us through different models of what the Trinity is, depending on the part of the world. And I just remember like him getting into like Brazilian theology or Brazilian Christianity and what it looks like, and he showed us videos of like those people that like do the surgeries, they call them. You know, it looks like they're digging into their stomach. Have you seen that? And there's all this blood coming out, and they take out stuff from within you and heal you, right? And he was like, he was not like 100% convinced, but he was like, there's something really weird happening here, and he attributed it to like demons and so forth and so on. He was not calling them out for being deceitful or for being pretenders. I later then saw videos by the great Randy, and Randy,
Magician.
yeah, the magician. He debunked a lot of those fake special healers, and he actually showed one episode how to do it and everything, and it looks just the same.
Yeah, because I feel like we grew up with those stories too, like voodoo, came and pulled out a cockroach
Right.
out of you, and you saw the cockroach, so that's your proof. But you could easily have that hidden in your hand and just slide a hand.
Yeah, the hidden salamander. That's what happened to my dad. He had some gypsy woman approach him and said, she was like, it looks like something's wrong with you. Kind of like how the TikToker was like, I see a darkness over you that you've got to act now. She was like, looked at my dad and said, someone had placed some sort of incantation or
curse,
a spell on you, maybe a past. And then they'd be like, oh, so did you have a girlfriend before that perhaps doesn't like you? And then like,
who doesn't?
Yeah, if you're like 20-something years old, right?
All
like
your exes, I'm sure you...
There's bound to be somebody that you're gonna be like, yeah, that witch. So he was like, yeah, sure. So she's like, all right, put your hands out like this. And my dad put his hands out like that, and she's like, go ahead and cup them like that. And she's like, I'm gonna. She put her hands on him. She's like, squeeze hard. And then she's like, I'm gonna open my hands, and you're gonna open your hands, and something's gonna come out from there, and whatever that is, you gotta step on it and kill it. Yeah. So right away, my dad was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to do that." So he gets all psyched up about it, and sure enough, he claimed that a black salamander leaped off his hands.
Oh my god!
And then he stepped on it and killed it, and that was the end of the spell. And then he,
which she didn't know about beforehand.
Yeah, in which she could have easily sleight of hand, underhanded it to him, and make it appear, as you can hide just about anything in your hands if you know what you're doing. And he bought that, and then sure enough, later, guess what? Confirmation bias hits inevitably.
Well, I wonder too if she was selling, like, if you want a protection, it's $59.99 right here. You can buy your protection, and a lot of times it's connected with services that now they're selling. But go ahead.
Yeah, or they could just try to take advantage of you right there in the spot and go, which is what they usually do. Is they move around. And so, sure enough, my dad got a job, and he took that, if I understood his story correctly, he took that as confirmation that indeed the spell was taken away by this woman because he got a job. But dude, you were a young professional with a degree. You were bound to get a job at some point.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just how our humanity, thinks.
Yeah.
And so.
And that's what keeps you clinging on to your faith, is this fear that bad things are going to happen if you leave, or that good things are going to come if you continue to have the faith. And, God knows your heart and God knows your thoughts, so He's going to bring you favor, bring you reward, bless you. And that's not the case. I'm living proof that after having believed and walked away from that belief, that nothing bad's happened. It's been a lot of great things. I feel like our marriage has improved, and parenting has improved, and got a great job after I was an unbeliever. Mark as well. So all our family's in good health, all is well right now. But at any point, anything bad could happen to anybody, and that's not exclusive to whether you believe or not.
Did you know that the...
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it looks like we are already a minute 30 into this. We've got about 10 of you right now that are watching, and we love you for that. If you have not already subscribed to Belief Battles and Apostate of Mind, please do so. We could use your support. Like this and share it, you know. If you've got someone that is brave enough to want to call us, we are here to be able to take your calls and answer to your claims. So let's see. Do we want to look at another TikTok? I've got several open here. Any of those easy pickings?
I mean, what do you think? We're an hour and a half in. I think it's a good time to wrap it up, or do you want to do one more?
I think we could do one more and then wrap it up.
Sounds good.
This way, folks.
Oh yes, I want to tell about.
If you've been thinking about asking us a question, I'm gonna be looking at the chat right now. We're gonna do our last TikTok, and then let me give you some time to put something on the comment section, and if so, then we can address it. We'll be happy to.
Yeah, thanks for staying with us so far. This next one I'm really excited about because upon looking into it, and I feel like I've seen this video shared so much, and it has to do with the Ark of the Covenant and thinking back from when we believed. Don't you remember hearing about the Ark of the Covenant, and what do you remember hearing about it? Like, where is the Ark?
Yeah, where is the Ark?
Where did you remember hearing it was back when we were believers?
So, the things I've heard two things. Number one, no one knows. Mm-hmm. No one knows where the Ark is. Number two, the Ethiopians have it.
Yes, that's what I remember hearing. Oh, maybe Ethiopia or...
Yeah, there's Anton just... I'm sure he was very quick and
so where is it, well. Anton? Where is the Ark of the Covenant? Tell us.
So, but with that is supposedly it's in a place that no one can go in, that's heavily guarded, and so there's not really a way to check it.
That's not even the claim.
I mean, it's part of that.
That's like what you hear, right?
Okay, what else do you know?
Okay, so let's play the video. That's what he's claiming.
This dude?
Yes.
Okay.
So make sure to meet.
All right, here we go, folks.
Ark of the Covenant has actually been found. This is crazy because the Ark literally holds the 10 commandments that Moses got from God. And this all started because of a video by a guy called Kevin Cash, whose goal in life is to make it known that the Ark of the Covenant has been found. And there's many people who debate this and get grumpy about it. But the biblical backing that he uses is just unbelievable. Check this. So it starts back on January 6, 1982, where a man by the name of Ron Wyatt says he discovered not only the Ark of the Covenant, but the actual crucifixion site of Jesus Christ. He was doing biblical excavation when he found this small cave and he went through it. To make a long story short, he ends up finding this golden box with a cracked lid and a cracked ceiling through the entire mountain to the top with this hole in it. He also found a dark dry substance on the top of the mercy seat of the Ark. And he actually passed out when he realized it was blood, because according to the Old Testament, in order to fulfill the law, the blood of the sacrifice must be applied to the mercy seat. And if Jesus was the sacrifice, then according to the law, his blood had to be applied. Did you know that?
As you can see, there was no pictures. Where's the Ark of the Covenant? There was no, when he mentioned the top of it and the blood and the housing of the 10 Commandments. If this was found, like, where's the picture of the Ark of the Covenant? Where's the picture of the top? Where's the 10 Commandments that were found in it? None of that. He doesn't show any of it. And so upon researching Ron Wyatt and his claim about finding the Ark of the Covenant, so Ron Wyatt claims that he saw the Ark of the Covenant, and that's it. He doesn't have it. It's not on his website. He didn't take it out. In fact, so this excavation took place in the Garden Tomb, and he had to get permission to, dig. He's not an archaeologist, this Ron Wyatt. So he goes and he digs, and the Garden tomb associations with him during this excavation. They're watching him pull out things. Everything he pulls out, they documented, they analyzed. That was part of the deal. And they wrote a letter, and anyone can go see this because this was such an issue that he was claiming he saw the Ark of the Covenant, that the Council of the Garden of Tomb Association in London, they wrote a letter, and here's what they say. It totally refutes the claim of Wyatt to have discovered the original Ark of the Covenant or any other biblical artifacts, because he was also tied to finding Noah's Ark, I believe. But this is specifically referring to within the boundaries of the area known as the Garden Tomb, Jerusalem. Though Wyatt was allowed to dig within this privately owned garden on a number of occasions, staff members of the association observed his progress and entered the excavated shaft. As far as we are aware, nothing was ever discovered that supports his claims, nor have we seen any evidence of biblical artifacts or temple treasures. So, not only is there no evidence of this, we don't know where it is, but this organization that was part of the excavation said, we didn't see him take out anything. That's false.
Yeah, and I think that the ark was not even present during the time of Jesus. By then, it was already deemed to have disappeared. It was likely stolen or destroyed by enemies. Jerusalem was sacked and destroyed at least twice when Nebuchadnezzar came, and they just plundered everything and destroyed everything and sold whatever and kept whatever that had any value. So it's almost an impossibility at this point for it to have survived.
And if you think that this is Bible archaeology or that archaeology confirms a biblical account, I want to read to you what these other archaeologists, who are archaeologists, Ron Wyatt is not.
No.
So these archaeologists, Joe Zayas of Israel Antiquities Authority, has stated that Ron Wyatt is neither an archaeologist nor has he ever carried out a legally licensed excavation in Israel or Jerusalem. In order to excavate, one must have at least a BA in archaeology, which he does not possess, despite his claims to the contrary. His claims fall into the category of trash, which one finds in tabloids such as the National Enquirer. Quote.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other thing that he mentioned there was about the blood. There's no way that blood sprinkled on furniture could survive that long.
Well, that's the other claim too, is they're saying it was survived and has 24 chromosomes, and there's a lot of pseudoscience, again, without evidence.
Yeah, right. And so that's proof that the Holy Spirit can, which is proof that Jesus is not of the lineage of Joseph. Therefore, he cannot claim hold of the Messiah because the evidence is in the blood, folks.
That's what the 24 chromosomes shows.
He is lacking Joseph's 24 chromosomes. Therefore, he cannot be of the tribe of Judah. So, all right, folks. With that,
yes,
I think this has been another great episode of Belief Battles.
Well, I see Major Anthony Nelson posted a quick quote, but I was going to say maybe you can call in next time. I'd love to talk about that because that's one of my favorite topics. I think there's so much to be said, so please call back next Tuesday.
Yeah, and no one claims that though, Major. No one claims that life came like that. No one does. In fact, the only ones who claim that the universe came from nothing actually are religious people that believe in the book of Genesis.
And I think he's saying lifeless garbage goo, like as in primordial soup. So let's talk about it next week because I think there's more to be said there.
Okay. Yeah, even that too as well.
Yeah, maybe he means that so we can get more clarity on what he means.
It could be. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, folks. And this has been another episode. We are looking forward to it time after time. So thank you for those of you that joined in and are still there. We greatly appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you again. Anything else you want to share with us?
Thanks for watching.
All right. Take care.
Hello and welcome to the all-new call-in show, Belief Battles, a weekly show ready to take your calls about religion, atheism, and secularism, featuring co-hosts, atheist and international VTuber Teo Elateo, and Mark Peralta, an ex-evangelical pastor, now atheist. So without further ado, Belief Battles.